every time they do the same goddamn trick. You're hurting the Democratic Party. You're for Trump. You're for Trump. Operatives didn't do that. Mainstream media did that. And now they're like, oh, we're the victims.
Hey, Democratic voters, iceberg straight ahead. We got to do something about the iceberg. You like Trump. You support Trump. You're MAGA now. Okay, well, enjoy your second term of Donald Trump as you decided to excoriate anyone who was telling the truth and giving the appropriate warnings about the Democratic Party and the Biden administration. Don't let corporate media condition you to be an idiot. Don't do it.
Knowing what you know now, do you think you would have beat him?
Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people didn't show up. Number one. Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states.
The bottom line is the White House was lying, not only to the press, not only to the public, but they were lying to members of their own cabinet. They were lying to White House staffers. They were lying to Democratic members of Congress, to donors about how bad things had gotten.
Joe Biden's reemergence in the media, particularly on The View, has pissed off quite a few Democrats. And now we're also learning some new details about how much Democratic operatives absolutely despised Biden even as the 2024 election was underway. People were not happy. So Axios and The Guardian have published a few excerpts from a new book by CNN host Jake Tapper, who, by the way, was totally criticizing anyone who called into question Biden's fitness for the White House. But nonetheless, he wrote this book along with Axios's Alex Thompson, titled Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Now, in it, there are some new revelations about what was happening behind the scenes with the Democratic Party, with the campaign as the election was underway. And the book is based on interviews with over 200 people, made up mostly of Democratic insiders who spoke after the 2024 election had concluded. And so they write that Biden's physical deterioration, most apparent in his halting walk, had become so severe that there were internal discussions about putting the president in a wheelchair, but they couldn't do so until after the election. Like, they're having these kinds of discussions behind the scenes while publicly telling us all Biden's young, dynamic, he's got it going on, nothing to worry about.
Well, so this one is both really important as a topic, but also a little bit personal, because here on the Young Turks, we said years ago that Biden had a problem. And it was, and is it because we're like the world's greatest reporters? No, because we have eyes and ears, like most humans. And so when Biden was falling apart at the seams publicly, we said, look, obviously there's a problem. Look, he just shook hands with no one. It was an invisible person. What is he doing? He can't finish sentences. He's getting all the world leaders wrong. This was super obvious. But now reporters, and this is unbearable, are pretending that they got lied to and there was no way they could have figured it out. How about you did some reporting earlier when it was relevant? And instead, what did you do? You yelled at every single person who said Joe Biden was old.
I gotta give them credit though, Cenk, because they managed to monetize laundering their reputations and rewriting history. Like, their revisionism about themselves is making them additional money. In the case of Jake Tapper, Alex Thompson, to his credit, was one of the few reporters who was calling a spade when it came to Joe Biden. Before anyone else, before the debate, before anyone else was willing to call a spade a spade.
Okay, so those of us who bravely pointed out that the Democrats were more likely to lose if Joe Biden was around, we were all accused of trying to help Trump. Now, if it turns out that we were right, and it did turn out that we were right, who helped Trump the most? Ironically, mainstream media and Democratic leaders who worked together to make sure a senile old man was left running against Donald Trump. A guy who would obviously lose, but none of them minded as long as they served power. And forget me, because I'm persona non grata and I'm an outsider and a populist. They would never, ever acknowledge us, let alone apologize. Forget Marianne Williamson, who was a hero on this. But Dean Phillips, a member of Congress, and I remember when he went on CNN and suggested that Biden might be too old. They're like, how dare you? You're hurting the Democratic Party, aren't you? And now Jake Tapper on CNN has the nerve, the gall to come out here and say, oh, I found the real killer. Like he's O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, here he is doing it right now. Let's watch.
White House physician Dr. Kevin O'Connor was telling White House aides that President Biden's deterioration of his spine, the degeneration, was so significant that if he fell one more time, that he might have to be in a wheelchair and serve in a wheelchair for his second term. But everybody pushed off the notion that he used a wheelchair until after the election. This is all part of a larger whole where the Biden White House tried to hide the extent of his deterioration, both physical and cognitive, as much as possible. In fact, as we all know, we all saw, as his shuffling gait got worse and worse from 2003 to 2004, they started putting aides around him as he walked to Marine One, the helicopter that was to kind of hide from public view how bad his gait was, how bad his walking was, his shuffling, and also in case he stumbled again to make sure somebody was there.
I remember during the election, there were all these videos shared on social media platforms featuring Joe Biden doing some of the stuff that you had mentioned, Cenk, right? Stretching his hand out to shake an invisible person's hand, looking confused and lost on stage. And you know what we heard? Not just from Democratic operatives and politicians, but also members of the media. We heard that those were all deep fakes of Joe Biden.
Yep.
Deep fakes.
Yeah, has everybody in media that said that stuff come out and apologized? If they all apologize, yes, I was a propagandist for Joe Biden. In fact, forget it. Don't even say you're a propagandist, even though you obviously are. And it's not for Joe Biden. It's for anyone in power, okay? Asterisks, not Donald Trump, not Bernie Sanders, right? Anyone from the establishment in power, you serve them. Guys, because I know when we criticize people in power, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, the people who attack us are not political operatives. They're almost always mainstream media reporters. And they will do snide articles or stories like, oh, there's a bunch of conspiracy theorists, loser outsiders, thinking that Joe Biden's too old. Right? And then every time they do the same goddamn trick. You're hurting the Democratic Party. You're hurting the Democratic Party. You're for Trump. You're for Trump. You're for Trump. Right? Operatives didn't do that. Mainstream media did that. And now they're like, oh, we're the victims.
Yeah, and
we were lied to.
Yeah, and they conditioned voters to think that way as well.
100%.
Which was so unbelievably frustrating during the election, where it's like, hey, Democratic voters, iceberg, straight ahead, iceberg, straight ahead, iceberg. We gotta do something about the iceberg. You like Trump, you support Trump, you're MAGA now. Okay, well, enjoy your second term of Donald Trump as you decided to excoriate anyone who was telling the truth and giving the appropriate warnings about the Democratic Party and the Biden administration. I mean, it's just, don't let corporate media condition you to be an idiot.
Yeah,
don't do it.
They're trying to train you for obedience.
Exactly.
And they do this trick every time. During the lead up to the Iraq War, Young Turks, the oldest show in internet history, we were around back then. Okay, and so we were the one of only 2 national shows that said, don't go into Iraq, it's gonna be terrible, right? And they did not attack us on 9/11. But 7 out of 10 Americans, when we went to war, thought that Iraq attacked us, that Saddam Hussein personally attacked us. Why did they think that? Because mainstream media told them that. They told them, oh, the Dick Cheney says they come from the general region as the 9/11 attackers. 9/11, 9/11 Iraq, Iraq 9/11. So they lied to the American people in mass, and then anytime anybody questioned it, oh, are you pro Saddam Hussein? You know how terrible Saddam Hussein is? He's a dictator. Yo, he's in favor of a dictator, terrorist, terrorist. And mainstream media did that, and then afterwards they're like, oh, we were lied to. Okay, right. Then it's a confession. You guys suck at your jobs. I'm not saying that, you're telling me that. Oh, I couldn't figure out who attacked us on 9/11. You couldn't figure that out? You couldn't figure that out. You couldn't figure out that Biden was old and you call yourself a reporter? No, that's a confession that you're the worst at your job. If a plumber worked like this and every time they came in, your toilet overflowed even more, you'd never hire the guy.
Okay, a few more things. Biden lied about his slow and tortured walk. by saying that he had damaged his foot, he had injured his foot. That wasn't true. White House Dr. Kevin O'Connor repeatedly said that Biden's tortured way of walking was actually due to significant spinal arthritis. And that was also part of the reason why there were all these talks about putting him in a wheelchair. But even now, you have Biden spokespeople defending the former president, saying that he was fine, but focused more on his mental capacity. Biden's medical exam made clear that he had a stiffened gait caused in part by wear and tear to his spine, but that no special treatment was necessary and that he had not worsened. He was transparent about this, was he? He said he had injured his foot. That's interesting. Yes, there were physical changes as he got older, but evidence of aging is not evidence of mental incapacity. No, the disastrous debate he had with Donald Trump was evidence of his mental state. Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson also pointed out that Obama had to rescue Biden numerous times during his June 2024 LA fundraiser for freezing and also being incoherent. And Biden apparently couldn't even recognize George Clooney, who was at that fundraiser and who later penned an op-ed urging him to drop out of the race in the New York Times. Speaking of Biden being unable to recognize people, in 2019, so this is in the lead up to the 2020 presidential race in which Biden did end up beating Donald Trump. Biden was campaigning for the presidency and he couldn't remember the name of his longtime advisor, Mike Donnellan. This was in 2019. And I remember calling into question Biden's mental capacity during the 2020 presidential election. And we would get criticized for doing so. We were made out to be really bad people, cruel people, ageist for doing so. So according to Original Sin, Donnellan, by the way, had worked with Biden since 1981. So it's not like, oh, he's a brand new operative that Biden wasn't that familiar with. He had worked with Biden for decades. And according to Original Sin, that was the only time that Biden's aides worried about his mental acuity before he became president. Even after Biden's disastrous 2024 debate against Trump, Donnellan still tried to convince Democratic Party officials that Biden was not in mental decline. So the same guy who in 2019 Biden couldn't recognize because of his mental decline, that guy went on to continue denying that Biden was in mental decline.
Yeah, so I want to be clear about this. That was the only sign they had that Biden was in mental decline in the 2020 election. So because he didn't recognize Donnellan in 2019. So I questioned Biden's mental fitness in 2020. And when I did, I mean, forget 2024. When I did it in 2020, everyone, Democrats, media, everyone took my head off, right? Oh, how dare you, you're trying to help Trump, et cetera. No, guys, running, and that was in the primary, running a bad candidate helps Trump. Running a good candidate hurts Trump.
But that's not what MSNBC told me.
MSNBC told me, obey, obey, obey. Stop listening to them when they tell you to obey. Because guess what, guys? In the next election, they're gonna do the same exact lies. So guys like Donnellan are gonna come out, even though he knows that, hey, this guy's totally falling apart at the seams and has been falling apart at the seams for 5 years. He didn't recognize me 5 years ago. But I'm gonna tell you, after the debate, Biden's the best guy, has no mental issues at all. Now, why do they lie? Because almost everyone in Washington is there to serve power. They're not there to serve you. The media, the politicians, they lost your trust for good reason. You were right not to trust them. Their job is not news. Their job is propaganda for the powerful. And so when they come out afterwards and pretend that they didn't know and that golly gee, they're the victims, I can't stand it. It's unbearable.
So finally, during a recent appearance on The View, Biden claimed that he had given, Kamala Harris 6 months to run, which obviously wasn't true. Kamala Harris, because of the fact that Biden dropped out so late into the race, only had 107 days to campaign. And her campaign advisor, David Plouffe, was not happy about this, called it an effing nightmare, and said, it's all Biden, he totally effed us.
Yeah, and so Democrats are very frustrated. He's going out and doing interviews because it reminds everyone about how the Democrats lied to them. So the Democratic Party has to regain trust because it wasn't just Joe Biden. Almost all of the Democrats lied. And it's not like they didn't know. How did we know if they didn't know? They knew Biden a lot better than us. They had more interactions with Biden. It wasn't an accident. They lied to you. And so every time Biden goes out there, we're reminded of that lie. And he keeps saying that lie. And then The View, with their propaganda machine that is The View, is like, no, Joe Biden is still great. He was a wonderful candidate. He is the greatest. And so is Kamala Harris. And next time we will tell you to obey. So by the way, in one of these instances, he didn't recognize George Clooney. George Clooney is one of his biggest donors, one of the most famous people on earth. They're like, Mr. President, it's George. And he's like, okay, George, whoever you are, right? And he didn't say whoever you are, but he didn't recognize him at all, according to all of his aides. And it goes on and on and on until they're like, sir, it's George Clooney. Yep. He was like, oh, okay. And all those aides then go out and tell all the reporters, oh yeah, he's great, young, dynamic. And every Democrat goes out there, young, dynamic, great. And every media reporter says the same thing. So, and then they wonder how they lost the trust of the American people. Jesus Christ. Hey, Democratic Party, try something crazy for a change. Start telling the truth. You're never gonna do it. Neither are the Republicans, don't get me wrong, no way. And so I can't stand Donald Trump's nonstop lying, but don't tell me that he's the first politician to lie when Joe Biden and the rest of you have done nothing but lies my entire life. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.